And the people looked back at him and thought, Lo, there is a greatness alive in this land after all, for there stands a true king. When they saw Arthur, they knew who they were and where they belonged, and that they were home at last. Welcome to Billy's Books. Today we're going to do Lev Grossman's The Bright Sword. When I first got this book, I confused it, or I thought it might be another post-Arthurian legendary. I thought it was maybe by the same writer because it looked so similar, but it's not the same writer. Anyway, this is some stories from Arthurian legends. The New York Times Best of 2024 got me to read it. I'm really enjoying it. It's basically the story is framed by some nobody who is questing. He's on his way to Camelot to hopefully join the Round Table. He's a really good fighter. He wants to be a proper knight. So he gets there, but he's kind of he feels like he's a fraud because he's a nobody. He's not noble or anything like that. And then when he gets there, he actually lies about his nobility and then feels like crap like that. And he suspects they suspect and all that. Anyway. His name is Colum. He becomes Sir Colum. He's not just a commoner, but he had an abused childhood, and so he's got all. But in part of that abuse is he got really good at fighting. Surprise, surprise. He's from the north. The northern folks in England, they are less Christian because the Romans, the Roman influence was more from the south and moved up, and they spend a lot of time talking about how the Romans abandoned them and they brought Christianity with them, and so there's the old gods and then there's the Roman god, and those are sort of in conflict, and all the culture that goes associated with that. At the same time, they resent that the Romans came and then left them. They feel abandoned by that, but also it's complicated nationalist feelings. When Colum first gets to the Round Table, he finds that it's actually there's very few people there, and he finds out that King Arthur is dead, and that bit of a bummer. And the knights who are remaining there are bummed about it too. Arthur himself actually had a druid past, but he embraced Christianity wholly, and he is known for having united Britain. But now that he's dead, they're afraid it's all going to fall apart, and all the different kingdoms are going to start quibbling again. The knights are going to try to prevent that. What is buried is not gone. That has to do with the druid culture, but so much more, of course. Sir Bedivere is still around, and he was King Arthur's right-hand man, and he really misses King Arthur. This version of it has Sir Bedivere kind of in love with Arthur, and he's really bumming because of that, but also when he was still alive, Sir Bedivere was very protective and jealous of King Arthur. Sir Bedivere particularly hates Lancelot. Lancelot in this version is accused of sleeping with Guinevere, but the Lancelot followers are like, no, he's pure. So there's a lot of that. Some people think he's a terrible person. Some people think he's the best. Of course, Lancelot is from the continent, so he's French. That makes it a little worse. A lot of these stories are told in flashback because we're going to get to see King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table a lot in their various quests. So a lot of them are just flashbacks. Sir Colum arrives, and then things happen, and they also tell lots of backstory. So this is a backstory of an adventure with King Arthur from Bedivere's perspective. I believe this is Arthur. Just got in a fight. "How bad's my ear?" he asked. Bedivere took this as an excuse to lean in close. The king smelled of sour sweat and sweet cloves. What exactly did Arthur know? Bedivere wondered that every day. After all, did the king not see everything for what it was? Was that not his gift of gifts? If Arthur had closed his eyes then, angled his chin just enough, Bedivere could have kissed him. Would his touch scorch the king the way the embrace of the flaming knight had? But Bedivere said nothing. Sometimes he didn't know if he was a brave man or a coward. "Your ear looks fine," he said. We get to meet some knights. Most of the big names are not there when Colum arrives, but some are. One of the persons we meet is Sir Palamedes of Baghdad. So he's an Arabic guy who's come to England and sort of adopted Western culture. So he's now Sir Palamedes. Even though he's come and arrived, he's unimpressed by Camelot. He'd heard all about England as this weird island with, bird trees or something, and he was like, I have to go investigate since I'm a nobody prince, down the line or whatever. So he goes there, and he gets there, and he's like, this is nothing of the fantastic. This is bland and dark and miserable. It's nothing like what I heard about. And when he gets to Camelot, like, oh, the King Arthur's, glorious castle, and he gets to the Camelot, and he's like, meh. And also because he's from Baghdad, he's cleaner and more handsome and better dressed and knows more about math and science than all the barbaric Englishmen. So he's one of the interesting characters. I don't know how to say it. So that's an adopted Greek name. They have a quest with a green... Oh yeah, and one of the things he talks about is when Sir Palamedes talks about all the Arabic inventions, like, the number 0 and things like that. They're like, and all the cool inventions they have, they're just like, they don't believe him. Like the idea of what the Romans had invented, because the Arabic people still have memories of the science and stuff the Romans had, whereas the English have forgotten it all. Dark Ages, some would say. So they don't, when he talks about all the cool Roman things like aqueducts and these fancy things that required math, they just don't believe him. They're like, no, there's no way. Ignorance, right? They end up with one of the funny things about this book is, they keep on demanding from God the miracle to prove whatever. So they'll sit around and go, we're just sitting around, we need a quest. We're not going to eat again until God shows us a miracle. And somehow God complies, which is just ridiculous. So at some point some weird miracle happens and they meet this guy who's a green knight, and he's really just twigs in a metal suit, which is pretty funny, and they have to follow him on a quest. And Sir Colin continues to lie about his nobility, even though he's been accepted as a knight. They find Guinevere, and as a widow, she is scorned, and she's sort of now a nun. And amidst all these quests and demanding of God to show a miracle when they darn ask for it, there's also just, because it's an Arthurian legend and stuff, there's just miracles happening left and right. And magical things, like Sir Colin accidentally stumbles into a magic land for a while and thinks he's been abandoned and or lost, and travels around for a long time, and then he pops out and no time has passed. That kind of weirdness. They really lean hard on the former glory thing. So there's the former glory of King Arthur, who's now dead. There's the former glory of the Roman Empire, who came and civilized them and then abandoned them again. So and just that, it's just got a feel of things used to be better. Now what do we do? There's a lot of now what do we do in this book, and that might be one of the big themes. Now what do we do? The lone beech tree was split and smoldering. It was over. They'd won. Do you see, Morgan, from your glass castle? But how then could he feel so empty? A hollow armor defending a hollow fortress, and Arthur's empty bed. He bent over and put his hands on his knees and closed his eyes, and in the black he saw the city, the drowned fairy city, the tall towers and flooded streets. His forearm was throbbing, and low down on his right side was a wound he didn't remember getting. The stubs of broken arrows hung off his armor where they'd lodged in the gaps. A bit of his helmet had been bent in by a blow and was cutting into his temple, and the blood and sweat stung his eye. Sir Colin gets in his, he's all a fighter and stuff. He's been doing street fights, but when he joins the round table, suddenly he is in real battles, and it freaks him out, and he's like, oh my god, I'm scared. And then afterwards, after killing all these people, he has PTSD, or, that's what we call it now, obviously not then. So, some of these guys are really casual about it, and he isn't. These are serious stories, and people are going through serious things, but the writing does have a certain charm. I find myself chuckling out loud. It's very understated. I appreciate the understated humor more than the in-your-face humor, and this has that. It's just the way he phrases stuff, I think, is pretty funny, so I enjoy that as well. The quest for the Holy Grail, which is in the past, it turns out to be really brutal. It starts out really nice with God telling them you must quest the Holy Grail, but then they do it and then they feel like God's punishing them for failing. And some of the knights are like, why did you put us on a quest that you knew we'd fail? You know, why, God, why? You know, and these are just big questions that aren't really answered very often. So they question God's motives. One last quote from the book is, "The worst disasters come dressed as miracles." So as you know, I don't want to give away the ending, but I'm enjoying this book greatly. I do enjoy these Arthurian legends, especially the ones that are well written. So check it out. If you can't do a review,